Hello, folks, fellow gamers and brigaders and role-playing enthusiasts. Welcome to my continuing adventure of revisiting Iron Crown Enterprises Middle-earth role-playing system, otherwise known as MERP. Right? I was in a brief conversation in the brigade on the brigade channel here a few days back, which might be weeks back now by the time this thing gets posted, right? Okay. I think Dennis Bach, if that's how it's pronounced, I'm hoping to pronounce your name right there, friend, was made a comment or two, and there was some other fellow, and Pete, I can't remember his name, I apologize. Anyway, we was discussing the other guy that wasn't overly thrilled with, he had played a little bit of MERP, but was not thrilled with the weapons and equipment or something, or the stats or stuff for them. And Dennis had asked, was there an equipment guide for MERP? And my answer to that was, to best of my knowledge, no. They depended on the equipment and arms law or whatever that came from Rollmaster, and they recommended that you use that. It's just like the magic system for MERP was very thin, very lackadaisical and weak, in part because they were suggesting you should use spell law from Rollmaster or some other FRP system, because in truth they actually recommend, they hinted around that you should downplay magic in MERP, and because if you look at the novels, if you read the books and you watch the movies, but especially the books, magic's not prevalent. Now, grant you got the Saruman and Gandalf, you got the elves like Galadriel that's got magic. Galadriel's magic, for the most part, is subtle, and you notice that Gandalf uses great restraint. He doesn't go around flinging fireballs and lightning bolts like your traditional RPG mage. And the reason for that is Tolkien's, just the way Tolkien set it up. Magic was very subtle and I don't want to call it rare because that's not the right word, but I think you get what I'm going at here. He downplayed it. His story wasn't about great magic. And in that case, we see in the movies a bit more flash and bang than we do read about them in the novels, and that's because Peter Jackson tried to dial it up a hair, make it more exciting, and to give you a visual impression that these particular characters were no slouch, and to emphasize what the book said. So in that case, when there's this one scene where the council of the wise or whatever, the White Council gets together and they go to Dol Guldur and they basically drive Saruman out in his guise as the Necromancer. They drive him out, and in the books it's vaguely mentioned because Bilbo asks, where'd Gandalf take off to when the companions had started to cross through Mirkwood and ran into their adventures with the spiders and the elves. Gandalf was absent. That's because he had gone to Dol Guldur. Well, we see in the movies exactly what that meant. He went to Dol Guldur to investigate these stories and these rumors for himself, to see for himself if this, in truth, was some overpowerful human sorcerer or something more, and it turned out to be something more. And then we see even in more depth in the following movies where they go and they rescue him in The Hobbit, where they go to the White Council shows up to rescue him, basically. And in the process, we see Galadriel in full swing, and Elrod in his armor, and Saruman doing his thing, and we actually see a bit of magic. But even in that scenario, the magic is limited. It's not some huge fireworks display there. It's much more subtle and cerebral, if you will. But for the more jaded players, that's not a lot. And I had to always in the past, while I didn't subscribe to the Rollmaster set of rules when it came to that stuff, it was just more convenient for me to overlay the D&D rules for magic and weapons and so on and so forth over top of the MERP. So it just is what it is. I mean, we do the best we can with what we have. In that case, though, they did still come out with the treasure guide, which you'll find most FRPs have them. Most role-playing systems have them to one degree or another. And if you ever wanted to know more about, Elrod's armor or Aragon's sword, or any number of stuff, the helm of Honorian, bracers of Chinnacat, the dark rake skin, so on and so forth. That's what you're going to find. You're going to find a list of just about every known magical item and weapon that's listed in any of the books that they could find, including their own stuff. So there's quite a selection here, and it even makes a point at the very beginning. And this is one of those things that Iron Crown, if you understand, was really good about doing. Where they said that this is meant for not for just our stuff, but for anybody else's stuff that you wanted to do. This volume describes the treasures forged by the inhabitants of Tolkien's world. Each item has a short description followed by a complete listing of its magical powers. Game statistics for the MERP and Rollmaster systems are included. These stats can be easily converted to most major FRPs. So the idea was you could translate this over into D&D or some other system and be successful at doing it. They tried their best to help you get to that point. Now, they go typical of ICE, typical of the Middle-earth writers and designers. They actually go a step further for giving you more detailed information. There's a whole chapter back here where when we get past all the magical items in the armor and so on and so forth, which, other than their names, are not unfamiliar to you. You'll find most of these things in some variant thereof in most other game systems. There are a few that are very unique to MERP and the Tolkien world, so that's it's a good thing. But you can easily alter them to fit your thing. But one of the chapters in here that I liked about this is that they include. Obviously, there's a chapter on the rings of power, the One Ring, rings in general. Rings have always been a popular form of wealth and endowment, but blah, 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 blah. 3 elven rings and their power, the 9 rings for mortal men, the 7 rings for the dwarves. They're all listed here, right? Some lesser rings. Go on and go forth. There's a lot of rings in here. Okay. Then we get to this chapter 5, called the Creators, and they go on about the Valor and the Maya, and they're especially the ones who were the creators, the smiths, the builders, if you will, the Astari. Then we get into the Free Peoples, 5.2. We talk about the dwarves, and they go into depth about the dwarves, the elves, the humans, and how creating magical items, and in general, weapon manufacture, armoring, and smithing at work, all that stuff, and how it plays out amongst their individual races. While where the elves have much more time to be careful and cautious, and invest a lot of time in creating very beautiful items that do very powerful things that take a lot of time to construct. The dwarves build very practical looking things that are still beautiful in their own way and very powerful. They're also adept at manufacturing things that include machinery and stuff of that nature, and they explain that. And then of course they go on to the humans, and then the humans, by the standards of the human manufactured stuff, by the standards of elves and dwarves, are considered very crude and fundamental and slipshod in a lot of aspects. They're not very durable in the long run. They're not going to last for millennia. But they explain that is because the human race is a limited lifespan. They at best 50 good years, and you're going to make every day count. And so in that aspect, humanity, we build things much faster at a much rapider pace with a lot less refinement and beauty, the effort put into that, because we don't have the time and we don't need to. So our constructions and things are much less durable than the other races, and it gives a good reason. It goes into good depth as to why that is. And then we include the Ents, the Hobbits, the great enemies, Morgoth, Sauron, both were great. Were major crafters. The demons, servants of the darkness, the Nuzgal, the orcs, all this stuff goes into some detail. Trolls, you wouldn't expect a whole lot of trolls to be doing a lot of metalworking, but surprisingly, some half trolls and stuff, according to these guys, actually do considerably good work and are dedicated to weapons of war, obviously, which explains why some of the trolls in the movies are wearing some hardcore armor. It wasn't apparent, it wasn't made for them by the orcs. It was made for them by other trolls, or in this case, half trolls, right? And then we get to a chapter that I'm really fond of, and I see this hit or miss in a lot of other game systems. They don't go into the level of depth and stuff that you could do, or that they chose to, because either people weren't interested in it enough, or it just wasn't, their bag, or whatever. But the chapter 6 is materials, and especially herbs, plants, and panaceas, Panaceas, sorry, whatever that is, and poisons. I can't pronounce that word. Anyway, so you want to know Olympus, aloe, athos, black clover, bogland grass. They go into great, it's alphabetical. They even give you some pictures of some of this stuff, their properties and their advantages and disadvantages and so on and so forth. So like here, for example, Arcasu, this is a drug is favored by travelers as a salt prepared from 3 or 4 different herbs imported from the distant east. It's not only antiseptic, but also heals 2 to 12 hit points and heals large open wounds at 1.5 times the speed. It is also a surface anesthetic and clot your blood. Okay. Anyway, has a salve. It costs 12 gold pieces for a dose or for a small container, right? And here's Arlen's slipper, also called Arlen's slipper or Arlan's slipper, is a white wildflower that grows in the woodlands and on mountain slopes. The dried roots are boiled in vapors and inhaled as a decongestant. It aids in resistance to the common cold, gives you a plus 20 resistant roll, and speeds the recovery from respiratory illnesses 5-fold. So, it takes you 5 times faster to heal from something you've inhaled that's messed you up. You got this stuff. And the plus 20 resistance, if you divide that by 5, is plus 4, right? Yeah. So, but I like this particular stuff because it gives you more depth, and it gives you it gives you options other than magic. Other than magic and clerical spells, it gives you options that real scenario. If you think about it, the average Joe, whatever, in most of these would-be fantasy worlds, don't have the wealth or the knowledge or the power to go and get stuff done magically. As the heroes gain access to a lot more of this than what the average Joe would. And so average Joe goes to the herbalist on the corner, or the midwife, or that crazy old witch living in the bog to get healed of something, and they are usually using an organic material, not magic. It's good to know, right? It also includes metals, air or copper, galen, shining white or aluminum. Now it says here, shining white or aluminum. They are rarely more than rumors of galen and is only infrequently available. Silvery white, seemingly like all-camera celeb, is lighter and will neither tarnish nor corrode. The galen only comes in a mixed in an ore found high in the southwestern part of the mines of the 7th Deep of Moria. Although there have been report traces of being found elsewhere, and a huge load of the ore is said to exist in the jungles of the south, only intense fires can wrest the pure metal from its ore, and this must account for its rarity. Dwarves think it insubstantial, not worth the trouble of smelting. Since it's not as strong as Ang, the dwarves like stout material, they have few uses for it, and what little galen the dwarves mine in their halls, they give nearly all to Mordor. No, to the Noldor. Excuse me on that one. The elves frequently use it as a building material. It's also found an application in Almond Land as an undercoat for the application of Merethian. That's a completely different module. We'll get to that one eventually. It's one of those that really get into some really obscure stuff and very unusual for Lord of the Rings. But we're going to get into that. So, Treasures of Miller doesn't deal with your mundane weapons and stuff, but you've got quite a thick list of things, that you can look at. The gypsies built Healer's Cloak, Mask of the Stage, Mantle of Dorith, Durin's Armor, Durin's Shield, Gaylor's Armor, Feather Armor, Home Light, Forest Bogard, Greaves Arm Wrestling. Yeah, there you go. A single arm guard that had washed up in a hidden cave in Fangorn. The straps are somewhat mildewed but can easily be replaced. The power is increased strength stat by 1 when worn. Greave of Arm Wrestling. A single Greave. There you have it. So, it's a good addition to anybody's shelf of treasure and loot and so on and so forth. I don't think you can have enough of those books because it just makes it easier for you to populate your treasure hoards without being redundant. We can have how many rings of protection, but if you can come up with another ring that has a different name and does a similar thing, well, then you got something that's a little bit less different than what the other one is. So there you have it, Miller's Treasure Guide. Buy it, love it, get it, dismiss it, what have you. There you go.